So there's a quote by Robert Sardello that really helped frame our time of meditation for me today. When we have cleared a space for the presence of silence, and that's capital S, silence. So Peggy, like how beautiful your prayer in the grace of synchronicity, that your prayer invited us into that silence also. When we have cleared a space for the presence of silence to enter whatever we are doing, we feel the presence of grace in our lives. When we have gotten to the point of feeling the desire of silence and can call to heart that feeling when we are about to begin our day and our work, we feel graced. So as we enter into our time of meditation, our time in the silence, I invite you to listen first to the voice of your body and wiggle and stretch or shift, whatever you need, and then settle in wherever you're sitting, here in this space or at home. Taking a deep breath in and out. Let that exhale come as a sigh, inviting the settling. Close your eyes if that's comfortable, or simply soften your gaze, relaxing the muscles of your face, letting all expression soften and tension melt away. Feel your feet grounded, resting on the floor. Sense your seat rooted, your whole body supported. And as you breathe in and out in your body's natural rhythms, let your shoulders relax. And let your hands rest on your lap or at your side, palms facing up, gently cupped to receive. When we have cleared a space for the presence of silence, in this moment, there's nothing you have to do. In this moment, there's nothing you have to do. In this moment, there is nothing you have to do. But gently breathe. Gently open. Gently awaken. Gently receive. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I clear a space for the presence of silence and lift my sails to grace. When you're ready, deepen your breath in that silence. And come into this moment. You can leave your eyes closed or soften your gaze or fully opened, whatever is wanting to happen in you now. There's nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to do. And yet, we also as a community are continually asking, in service of transforming the world around us, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? When we have cleared a space for the presence of silence to enter into what is mine to do, into whatever we are doing, then we feel the presence of grace in our lives. When we have gotten to the point of feeling the desire of silence, that's that capital S silence who desires in us. when we have gotten to the point of feeling the desire of silence and can call to heart that feeling that hopefully we landed in for a few minutes there in that silence, we can call to heart that feeling when we're about to begin our day and our work, and then we feel graced. I love how those words were in conversation with the lines that were more familiar to me of Catherine of Siena. God's grace unsought and unearned blows through my life, and all I need to do is raise my sails to feel the full wind. As I've said many, many times, almost probably every week, this process for me of writing a message that I hope will offer some point of inspiration becomes my spiritual practice. This week, just going to leave the largeness of this week out there. They all seem large these days. This week, as I searched out passages about grace, it began to feel like a conversation with those inner roommates who freak out over the state of the world. And writers from across the ages offered wisdom in the midst of how life can feel like one storm after another. It actually at one point felt like a very lively dinner party with the roommates in my head. This fellow Robert Sardello, who's from Texas, I need to do more reading about him because I love that passage. Catherine of Siena, Catholic mystic. Eric Butterworth, you unitics will be happy to know that I did a dive into Eric Butterworth for some inspiration today. All of those things, and many things that I read and came across this week, pointed to those small moments in my life where I could see the sea of amazing grace around me. So here is some wisdom from Eric Butterworth. The word grace means favor. Why are you favored? Why are you favored as a child of God? Simply because you are the activity of God expressing as you. I might really like Eric Butterworth. I have a passage, a longer passage from him. God's will for you is so intense, so continuous, and this one really resonated, that it even filters through your willfully closed mind. Hello, roommates. Not my former good roommate, but the roommates in my mind going da-da-da-da-da. God's will for you is so intense, so continuous, that it even filters through your willfully closed mind. You are not a helpless creature bobbing about like a cork on the seas of life at the mercy of the storms of fate and circumstances. And at the dinner party at that moment, Catherine of Siena said, "What do you think I was just saying?" Exactly. Butterworth says it like this: you are the very self-livingness of God. The very self-livingness of God. When you desire spiritual growth, it is God who has first desired it in you. When you make an extra effort in your work, it is the divine urge in you that is working through you. You are not simply a subject of God, with God making notations of sin and error or of good in his big black book. You are the activity of God in expression, beloved with an everlasting love. Living in a state of grace is an expression often used to imply that the person has earned God's favor. It may be made to appear that by joining a church, even one as wonderful as ours, or accepting a particular religious circle, you get something special. That it's like knowing someone at City Hall who arranges to fix your parking tickets. I love that he also has a sense of humor. Living in a state of grace can mean nothing more nor less than living in a disciplined awareness of the divine flow. God's flow is constant. Our experience of it changes with our consciousness. Grace, as the divine favor, the activity of God's love, is working for you constantly. It is not dependent upon any special faith or prayer on your part. Like the buoyancy of water that will keep you afloat even when you try to force yourself under, grace fulfills divine law by sustaining you in spite of yourself. There's nothing you have to do. It sustains us in spite of ourselves. So how do we recognize the buoyancy of grace? How do we lift our sails to the winds of grace? How do we make space for the presence of grace and know that we live in the divine flow that is working in us constantly? Here are some ways I lifted my sails this week. And as I share these moments, I invite you to call to your own heart, mind, those moments when grace, though invisible like the wind, made its presence known to you. On Tuesday, the Board of Trustees gathered for 5 hours of retreat here in the sanctuary. Our guiding questions that day were, what does it mean that being on the board is a spiritual practice? What does that mean? What does it look like? How does that matter? And if we are holders of the trust and holders of the consciousness of this community, how are we filling our wells so that our doing flows from our being? As we shared with each other what was active and what was missing in our own spiritual practices, we recognized that what wants to be happening in us as a leadership team is because something wants to be happening in this larger community and in the world. The Board of Trustees, as Heather so beautifully put it that afternoon, are not creating the consciousness of this community. We are holding it, reflecting it, expressing it, and being carried by it. That's it. The grace of those hours together was in creating the opening to the flow of energy, inspiration, and accountability that will help us be sound vessels for all of us. We say, and it's on this lovely banner to prove it, we say, we are a spirit-centered community. How do we live that truth? So on our retreat day, we made a commitment to ourselves, to each other, and really to all of you, to grow our own daily spiritual practices, to find the space in our lives, our inner lives, where grace can grow and flow. One of the ways that we're going to do that, and I'll put a little blurb in the next newsletter about this, but I'll offer it today, is a very simple structure that gives us some structure and some freedom that I had a really awesome primary care doctor in Massachusetts who told me when I was drowning in stress, try this thing. 20 minutes of movement, any kind of movement, a walk, dance in my kitchen, roll around on the floor, whatever. 20 minutes of quiet. Meditation, prayer, quiet, and then 20 minutes of anything else that fills my soul. Structure and freedom. On a retreat day, some of us were like, yeah, I can do 5, 5, 5, and maybe I can do that a couple times during the day. The idea was to fill our wells so that we can be vessels of this community. So I invite you into that. If that resonates for you, steal it. Grace this week was Circulation Day. Releasing everything that doesn't serve us anymore and inviting room for there to be the newness, whether that is simply more space in our inner lives because our outer lives echo that, or the exchange of, here's a new treasure for my space. That give and take that we say every week when we do our affirmation for our offering is that we trust that everything we give and receive creates that flow, that channel of divine generosity and abundance. That was a moment of grace to witness how many people got together to circulate our goods, to circulate our goodwill, to create goodness for planet Earth and for each other. Grace is recognizing the interweaving of the lives that touch mine. It's visits with dear friends, catching up on life and filling our sails together. It's family, the one I was born into, the one I raised, the one I created through those deep friendships that sustained me. Grace is sitting on my back deck in the morning with a cup of coffee, hearing the bird song, listening to the hum of traffic and neighborhood noises as harmony to the sound of the wind, and feeling the simple joy and gratitude of knowing how blessed and privileged I am in this moment in my life, just as it is. Living in a state of grace doesn't mean we never again face hardships, loss, frustrations, reckonings with the ways of the world. It simply means we have the ability to face it all with courage, with dignity, with awareness, knowing we are held in grace, filled with grace, vessels of grace. Again, from Eric Butterworth. Grace is simply a wonderful facet of the activity of God in you. It is not something you must work for or develop. It simply is. It is an assurance, an explanation of why things are never quite hopeless and why we never receive the full harvest of the error we sow, and why we always receive a little more good than we earn. You are the activity of God expressing as you. You are the very self-livingness of God in every moment. We are the convergence of fully, if temporarily, fully human and fully divine. We each must answer What is mine to do as the self-livingness of God expressed in me? In the face of our holy heartbreak, inspired by our holy imagination to transform the world by our holy rebellion, by our love in action, grace is the gift of divine wind that grounds our service, our activism in the sacred. I'll close with this prayer poem. I'm a huge fan, as you know, Peggy, of prayer poems. That book is a beautiful one. I'll post that on the website too. But let me close with this prayer poem by Stephanie Dorwick in a book, Heaven on Earth, Timeless Prayers of Wisdom and Love. And may it be a reminder to us to trust that God's grace, unsought and unearned, is expressed in us, through us, and as us in every moment. We pray. May I open to the ease and comfort. May I remember the quiet times when something shifted within me and I grew in grace. May I remember the moments of kindness when my heart opened and I grew in grace. May I remember when I reached beyond my own worries to help another, and I grew in grace. May our world be filled with moments of grace. May I remember the times of darkness when inspiration arose and I grew in grace. May we bring grace to life through our daily actions. May everyone live in grace, happiness, and peace. May I live in grace, happiness, and peace. May I embody peace. May I remember when I reached beyond my own worries to help another, and I grew in grace. May I remember the times of darkness when inspiration arose, and I grew in grace. May our world be filled with moments of grace. May we bring grace to life through our daily actions. May all beings, may everyone, everywhere, live in grace, safety, happiness, and peace. May it be so, and so it is. Amen.